I'm going to replace the 5-inch BDS blocks with a set of 4-inch blocks. As you guys can see, I've got the truck apart back here, and I'll explain why. You can see side by side, this block is tapered, so on the highest end, it's a little short of 4 inches, and on the tapered end, it's about 3.5 to 3 5/8 maybe. It's definitely heavier and higher quality on the BDS side of things. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week, and I really want to get started on some more things for the Duramax. So here we are. It is time to grind out some stuff that needs to get done to the Duramax immediately. Before we get to that, be sure to check me out over on Facebook Gaming, facebook.com/realjosephcorey. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter, realjosephcorey. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/josephcorey. Same with Twitch, twitch.tv/, you guessed it, Joseph Corey. Let's get right into it here on the Duramax. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what we're doing. And first things first, I need to get the blocks replaced. So I'm going to replace the 5-inch BDS blocks with a set of 4-inch blocks. We know that the front end on the stock Duramax usually sits right around 2.5 inches lower than the rear. Considering I have a 7-inch lift and the rear's got a 5-inch block, it means the front end is still about a 1/2 inch too low, and that is not good. Doesn't look good, plus it's also cranked, and it doesn't quite ride the way I want, although a lot of people say it rides quite soft compared to the trucks they've been in, but I don't like it. It's a little too rough. So we're gonna lower the front down to 6.5 or a little bit lower, and we're gonna lower the front from a 5 to a 4, giving it the perfect level look. But not only that, it's going to ride better. I also have to go up to Mercer Spring here and pick up a set of custom round U-bolts. The reason I'm doing that is because when you remove the top flex plate, which I'll show you is right over here on the top of the leaf spring. So if you've ever seen a BDS lift kit, specifically with a 5-inch block on the rear, they flip the U-bolts from square to round. They come up from the bottom of the axle and they clamp onto the top of the bracket or plate that BDS makes, and that goes on the top of the leaf spring. Once you do that, you pretty much are SOL, because the top flex plate or retainer clip for the factory square U-bolts or any other block that you put in the back that uses square U-bolts is no longer there. Especially if you've thrown it away or the shop threw it away, you're screwed, because they only sell it to you with the leaf spring. So you got to spend $300 to get like a little $5 piece of steel. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to stick with the round U-bolts, and there's a reason for that. Anybody knows about axle wrap and how the leaf spring can eventually bend if you do too much launching or pretty much really harsh driving, especially if you don't have traction bars. The problem here is that the leaf spring is not strong enough to handle that kind of torque with a block. It's just not meant to be like that. You're supposed to get a set of leaf packs that are designed to raise the truck. However, if you're going with a lift block, BDS's design with the top plate is better, because with the factory design and the square U-bolts, which most lift companies use, they're using an anchor plate on the bottom of the axle, and the U-bolts go around the top, and they sit on this little flex plate, which means all the strength is on the anchor plate and the axle, and up top, it's just the flex plate and leaf packs. At the end of the day, it's much better at BDS because we're using round U-bolts, which go around the axle. It's already strong down there, so we're latching onto it. We have a much wider, longer, durable, thicker, and better quality plate on the top with BDS, and that's where the round U-bolts clamp onto, creating a lot more coverage and clamping force on the leaf pack and a lot more stability. And I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. This is an extra set of BDS 5-inch block reverse plates that I have right here. The factory retainer plate for the square U-bolts is only about 1/4 to half this size, nowhere near as strong, thick, or as heavy. These weigh about 10 pounds each, legitimately. And putting this large of a plate on the top of the leaf spring and clamping on the top is a much stronger setup. There's a reason why BDS doesn't offer their 5-inch blocks unless you go with the reverse plate. That's because 5-inch blocks increase the risk of axle wrap, and this reduces axle wrap. And so using these with a 3-inch or a 4-inch lift block is going to almost completely eliminate the risk of axle wrap, which is what I recommend you guys doing. Buy the 5-inch BDS lift kit, chuck the blocks, get a 4-inch block kit, and custom U-bolts, and use these plates. Maybe you can buy them from BDS separately. So doing this kind of a job on your own is really not that hard. You're just going to want to put blocks behind the tires. And then after you do that, you're going to need a 27 millimeter for most lift kits. I know that BDS and ReadyLift both use 27 millimeter nuts on the U-bolts. The stock ones, I'm not exactly sure about, so I know that I'm going to need 27 millimeter for these. And because I have a BDS kit right now, this plate on the top, the adapter plate, is locked into the leaf spring, which is very similar to the stock setup. So there's really no difference there except just the style of the bracket. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to remove the 4 nuts, whether it's a lifted truck or a stock truck. The nuts could be on the bottom, but once the U-bolts are released from the nuts, we can go ahead and jack against this leaf spring right here. We're just going to have a jack with wood, and we're going to gently lift up on the leaf spring, which will leave us just enough room to unseat the block and then put the new block in. And once we do that, then I can lower it, do the other side, and then I can fasten the U-bolts. Okay, as you guys can see, I've got the truck apart back here, and I'll explain why. I really wanted to check the cardan joint, the U-joint on the back of the drive shaft, and also get the drive shaft balanced, although I'm going to hold off on the drive shaft balancing, and I'll explain to you guys why this is the easier way. There was an issue with the drive shaft U-joint, and I'll show you that as well and explain to you when you're chasing vibrations how to do all this. So what we've done here is I have jacked the truck up, and I've used these 6-ton ramps with some wood so I don't damage the ramps, and 3-ton jack stands. I've got the frame of the truck up, and I do that by lifting on the back of the pumpkin after the drive shaft is removed. Lift the truck up, lower it on the jack stands, and then you can lower the pumpkin, which lowers the axle away from the frame, allowing you to get the blocks out. The old one's out. Drive shaft was already removed at that point. It makes it easier to do this way. It really does. Instead of just trying to do it the shortcut way like, you know, most people, including myself, have done in the past, by just taking the extra step to brace the frame, you can separate the axle a lot more from the frame of the truck, and you don't got to worry about the shocks as long as you don't hyperextend them. And typically you can avoid that as long as your wheel doesn't go too far back. As you can see, the wheel hasn't shifted much, maybe an inch towards the back. You won't extend the shocks by doing that. However, you can remove the shocks, but I've done this before. So what's happening here is I'm rolling the wheel instead of lifting up on an 800-pound axle. And it definitely makes more sense to do it this way. It's longer, a little bit more painful in time, but a lot less painful in physical exertion, as you guys can see here. Watch me roll the wheel. See the wheel moves and barely touching it? I could move this probably a foot if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to push on it because it's already seated. And then once it's where you want it, you jack it up on the pumpkin, seat it, bolt it, then you can lift the whole frame up, put your drive shaft back on. So here's the difference between 2 4-inch blocks. We got the ReadyLift tapered and the BDS straight block on the top. You can see side by side, this block is tapered. So on the highest end, it's a little short of 4 inches, and on the tapered end, it's about 3.5 to 3 5/8 maybe. It's definitely heavier and higher quality on the BDS side of things. When you're installing the BDS blocks, just make sure, or any block, if there's 2 holes, typically the rear hole is the one you use. So if this is the back of the vehicle on the driver's side, and that's the front of the vehicle that way, you're going to want to use the rear hole for the top pin on the leaf spring. Big thanks to Mercer Spring in Trent, New Jersey for making these custom 3/4 by 4-inch by 15-inch U-bolts custom for my Duramax with 4-inch blocks. Comes with the washers and the nuts. We're gonna put these on and the rear end is done. We're just gonna get the drive shaft on and get everything situated. The reason this is easy, as you guys can see, I'm gonna pull on the tire, watch the lift block. See the block moving? The pin on the block is already sitting on the axle and in the hole properly, so we're just seating the top one. Once we've got that seated, we'll jack on the pumpkin all the way up. We're gonna put the plate on the top, we're gonna strap the U-bolts on, and we're going to torque everything down and get the axle and frame locked up nicely. Then we're gonna lift the truck up on the pumpkin, get the jack stands out, lower it down on its weight. We're gonna get the drive shaft installed. We're gonna clean the pinion and balancer, and we're gonna get the drive shaft installed, and we'll be good to go. It really doesn't take a lot of extra work. Jack the frame and give you the freedom of maneuvering, you know, the rear end a lot easier. So here we are looking at the drive shaft. I wanna tell you guys a little something. These drive shafts are a little bit different than some of the older GMs. Excuse my wood here, I had to take it up to the shop to get the U-joints checked out. You can see these are glued in from the factory. They have some pressure hardening type glue that goes in that's much better than the retainer clip. What you're really looking for on the U-joint is really the play this way and this way. And the key is you don't want it to be tight this way and loose this way, as it's gonna create an ellipsis, half the circle's loose, half the circle's tight. So you just turn and rotate and feel back and forth. And this U-joint, the shop and myself both agreed, is flawless. There's nothing wrong with this U-joint. And you want to wipe and clean up all of this stuff right here as best as you can so it's smooth. And another thing to really keep in mind is you really don't want more than 1 3/8 to 1.5 inches distance from, you know, the base right here. To where it sits on the seal. Right where mine is about perfect, but if yours is like all the way down here, shiny, like you can see where it's spinning and lubricating all the way down here, or it's all the way up here, you have a issue with your drive shaft, is sometimes they can be too short. This is the U-joint that I was talking about, and it was kind of frozen in position this way. Like it was really smooth when I turned it here, but as I came back, it was really tight. And that is created by the grease inside rusting, you know, just wearing this joint out. But by shocking it on the outside of the frame, pulling the caps and getting all the rusty grease out and re-greasing it, as long as there's no damage, we were able to salvage this because we don't want to go with a greasable joint. And they didn't have any of these left, so we cleaned it all up and resurfaced it. It's perfectly smooth in both directions. There's no clunking whatsoever, and there's no play on any of the joint. All right, guys, so I didn't do a video when I was measuring the pinion angle, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you the proper way to measure your pinion angle is on the rear pinion itself, on the balancer right here. You wanna put your digital or analog angle finder there. I did, and as you can see by the picture on the screen, I came out with 4.6 degrees. Then we're gonna go up here to the front, which is where the transfer case is, and you can see how easy this drive shaft is to move out. I'm like moving it out with just one finger, really. You want to remove the drive shaft and measure on the shaft itself, the input shaft of the transfer case. And as you can see by the picture on the screen, I got 6 degrees down. I take that 6 degrees from the 8.3 degrees of the drive shaft, leaving me with a working angle here of 2.3 degrees. Now on the rear pinion, I have 4.6 degrees, so we take the 8.3 degrees of the drive shaft and subtract it from the 4.6 degrees, leaving me with 3.7 degrees working angle up. Now that is approximately 1.4 degrees more negative or down than the front, and typically you want to be about 1 to 1.5 degree more negative on the rear. So this way it makes up for when you're light throttling to mid throttling and cruising, is that's going to probably chew up a degree, and then hard throttle, there's probably another degree. So anywhere between 1 and 2 degrees, preferably between 1.5 and 2. And right now I am sitting at about 1.5, which is perfect. You can put your angle finder, zero it out on the transfer case, which I did. This way it'll give you a true 0 to that exact degree on the transfer case. Then you put it on the rear balancer pinion where I showed you guys right here, and you want that to be between 1 and 2 degrees negative down. Up in here on the transfer case, it's not pulling out at all, which means the drive shaft is long enough for this block and everything is working out perfectly. As you would see, certain areas that would look shiny, where it's basically polishing itself, you'd naturally see a ring somewhere up here, and that's, you know, normal if a drive shaft is short or not long enough, where this is not the case. So this fits perfectly. As far as the drive shaft, I'm going to be replacing the rear balancer as well as the drive shaft U-joints and getting it balanced in the next week or two, maybe a month, just as soon as I can get around to doing it. The next thing is definitely balancing the drive shaft, replacing the U-joints, and getting that balancer on the rear replaced. And then after that, I got some other plans to paint these quarter panels and fix the little bit of rust that's going on kind of like around the wheel well. After that, we're staggering the truck even more, and I'm going to get rid of these 20 by 12s. And these tires literally have 80 or 90% tread left. They're rated at 45,000 miles, and I've got maybe 7,000 on them. So I'm going to polish them and, clean them up because they're ceramic coated, and probably sell them and move on from a 20 by 12 13.5 wide to a 22 by 14 15 wide, 375 45 22s. So that's going to give it a little bit more of a staggered look as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for stopping in. If you haven't already, subscribe. What are you guys waiting for? Subscribe, tap that bell so you guys are notified when I go live or post new videos. And also check me out over on Facebook, Facebook Gaming, facebook.com/realjosephcorey. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram under realjosephcorey, and Twitch, twitch.tv/JosephCorey, and on my other YouTube channel, youtube.com/JosephCorey, the YT, the tube. Be sure to subscribe over there. Lots of content coming for you guys on the Duramax. I'm also going to be getting another Duramax real soon. You guys are going to love it. Maybe even a Super Duty after that. Got a lot of truck content planned here. A lot. We'll see you guys in the next upload or live stream. Thank you so much. Peace and love for you. Don't forget, subscribe. We'll catch you guys. Peace.